Madam Mayor, we are recording and live on YouTube. You can begin whenever you wish.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome, everyone. This is our regular council meeting for October 1st, for those of you who might be watching it on YouTube post-event. Before we begin, to remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel and will also be there in perpetuity. We will have participants joining us from Zoom, from the chambers. Madam Clerk, are mics wired today? I just thought of that. Yeah,
They should be on.
Okay, thank you. Bear with me, sorry about that. I saw earlier the mic wasn't put up. So we do have members joining us, participants joining us from both Zoom as well as the chambers. So as is always the case, please raise your hand if you want to speak on a matter. I'll call on you. So we'll now call the roll. We have Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Present.
Councilor Watt. Present. Councilor Report. Present. Councilor Johnston. Present. And of course myself, Heather Watson. We have our clerk, Martina Shade-Cutler.
Good afternoon.
Our interim CAO, Mike Brunner.
Good afternoon.
Our treasurer, Paul Kramer.
Right.
And our manager of recreation facilities, Mike Hood.
Hello.
Others are welcome. So we do have quorum of council in attendance. I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And if we could just pause for a moment of silent reflection, please. Okay, moving on, of course, the agenda was circulated to council in advance, seeing pecuniary interest come through, but if there is, this would be the opportunity to declare that. Seeing nothing, could we get an adoption of the agenda, please? Councilor Report, seconded by Councilor Johnston, all in favor, and that motion carries. On to item number 6, adoption of the minutes and business arising from the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes before us for September 17th. Motion to receive and approve. Thank you, Councilor Watt and Councilor Johnston, all in favor, and that motion carries. We have 2 items on the agenda on consent. Does anyone wish to hold either of those items for discussion? Seeing nothing, then just one motion to approve, receive and approve that consent. Councilor Report, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion also carries. On to item number 8, delegations, petitions, presentations, or public meetings. We do have a presentation from Jamie Hobbs with our asset management plan. Jamie is the asset management advisor with PSDCY Inc. Mr. Kramer, did you want to preface this, or are we just handing it over directly to Mr. Hobbs?
Thank you through your Mayor. I think at this time I'll hand it over to Jamie, let him give the presentation, introduce the asset management plan, and then if there's any questions afterwards, I'd be happy to answer. The one thing I did want to address quickly is under key staff in the presentation coming up. I think it just lists me, but there was a lot more staff that played a role in getting to this stage, and I coordinated more than anything, and I think a lot of the other managers have bigger roles than me, so I didn't want to take all the credit there. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then over to you, Mr. Hobbs, for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Everyone can hear myself?
We can.
All righty, I'll just share my screen here and start a PowerPoint. One moment, please. All righty. Sorry, one moment.
You just turn this down. Okay. If it's helpful, Mr. Hobbs, the clerk has a copy of the presentation that we can share on screen if that's helping with the technology challenges. Feel like we may have lost the presenter altogether, or?
Madam Mayor, I still have it in our view, so I think here it comes.
There we go.
All right, can everyone see my screen? Sorry about that.
That's okay, we got you. Don't worry.
All right. Apologies, everyone. I didn't mean to keep you waiting. Thanks for having me. As said, I'm Jamie Hobbs, and I was the asset management advisor for PSD Citywide, working and finishing off the 24 asset management plan for the township. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to the township for the support throughout the project. As Paul mentioned, there were numerous individuals, obviously, throughout the township that would have worked on this. For myself, I came on board, and my main contact was with Paul. So my apologies for those who contributed and did all the workshops and all of the data sharing and knowledge sharing. So today I'll be sharing the updates we've made to this version of the 2024 asset management plan to ensure that it meets legislative requirements. Before we actually dive into the meats and specifics of the plan, I'd like to provide an overview of what asset management entails to give you some context for our project, if that's all right. So for the current project, we aim to update the AMP in compliance with the second phase of the OREG 588/17 regulation. Key contributors in the project were Paul Creamer and obviously others that I didn't have the ability or time to mention in that. So we appreciate everyone's involvement throughout the township for that. So why is municipal asset management important? Obviously, it's not just about checking the box for the regulations for the OREGs. It's about making sure your community has what they have the need to thrive. We need to recognize the infrastructure in our towns and cities aren't just roads, buildings, pipes. It's the backbone of our communities. And so why do we need to focus on managing assets properly? And it essentially boils down to the 3 bullet points there: organizing what we own, understanding our services, and ensuring accountability. To the first point, organizing what we own is much like taking an inventory of our home, but on a much larger scale. We need to know exactly what assets we have, where they are, what condition they are in. Understanding our services is not just about having those things, it's about knowing how these assets help us provide for our residents, whether it's clean water, safe roads, community centers. We need to connect the dots between our assets and the services they support. And finally, ensuring accountability, we need to be able to show our residents and stakeholders that we're using these funds wisely and effectively to maintain and improve the services they rely on. It's about recognizing that our communities depend on these assets, and we have a responsibility as stewards to manage them well. And so when we talk about the value of those municipal assets, we're really talking about the services they provide to our residents. And as such, we use 3 main factors to gauge how well those assets are serving the community, which is cost, performance, and risk. These 3 factors are all interconnected. If you change one, the others would move accordingly. If making decisions about assets, we're trying to find the right balance between these 3 factors, as you want to provide the best service possible to the residents while also being responsible with tax dollars and managing risks effectively. It's easy enough to say, not always easy enough to do. Understanding this relationship, however, helps municipalities make smarter decisions about how to manage the assets and how we can get the best performance at the lowest risks and costs for the community. So with the completion of this AMP, the township further refined their centralized asset inventory, which now contains 4 key items: the tangible capital asset inventory, condition assessments, which are based off of road needs studies, OSIM reports, other reports, inspections done by in-house staff. life cycle strategies and risks were created for asset profiles, and finally having that staff knowledge, that input and collaboration in the service areas that they're knowledgeable in, and providing that in-house knowledge. The OREG 588/17 has defined the requirements for 3 asset management plan iterations, first of which was required July 1st, 2022, included measuring current levels of service, asset inventory analysis, current performance of assets, life cycle activities, and costs to maintain current levels of service. The impact of growth on current levels of service for core assets. Core assets, of course, referring to roads, bridges, not applicable to yourself specifically, but stormwater, SANI, those type of assets. With the completion of this AMP, the township has achieved full compliance with 2024 as required. Looking forward to the next year, the final phase has additional requirements, which includes proposed levels of service, proposed performance of assets, life cycle activities, and costs to achieve proposed levels of service, updated financial strategies, and impacts of growth on proposed levels of service. Then after 2025, the regulation requires that all AMPs be updated every 5 years. Council conducts an annual review of the asset management progress on or before July 1st, and that the asset management policy and plan be posted on the municipal website. So some background on this asset management plan. It was developed and based on inventory that was within the citywide inventory database as of December 31st, 2022. This presentation will provide an overview of the state of the municipal infrastructure, provide recommendations to increase confidence in analysis and decision-making, and show the township's financial capacity to meet long-term capital requirements. As you can see here, this is the total replacement cost for each asset category that are within the asset management plan. And as you can see, the replacement cost for the portfolio totals $63 million. When considering replacement costs, we need to ensure we're accounting for all aspects of a capital project, which may be inadvertently excluded from that budgeting, engineering, design and inspection, mobilization, rehabilitation, other factors that would come in. Obviously, the buildings is a standout on this graph. Everything else, as you can see, has been accounted for. In coming up with that number, the primary replacement cost methodology for each of those asset categories can be seen here. There's a range of methods to determine the replacement cost of an asset, some more accurate, some more reliable than others. This asset management plan relied on 2 methodologies. The user-defined and cost per unit are typically one and the same. They're based on costs provided by the staff that are knowledgeable, and it can include average costs from recent contracts, data from engineering reports and assessments, staff estimates, based on knowledge and experience. The other methodology is with cost inflation and CPI tables. Historical cost of the asset is inflated based on the consumer price index. So user-defined costs are usually a more reliable source and a reasonable, accurate, and reliable way to determine those asset replacement costs, as the inflation is used in the absence of that knowledge. It's reliable, but as the assets age and new products and technologies become more available, that methodology tends to not become as more reliable. As you can see here, here's the overall condition of the asset portfolio for the township. The current condition is essential to all the asset management planning. The bar graph just illustrates how their assets are performing across the different asset categories. It shows the distribution of asset condition weighted by replacement costing. And you can see not just how many assets that you have, but the relative importance based on what it would cost to replace them. At the bottom, you can see there's collectively 42% of assets are in a fair or better condition based on the condition scoring. And it's a positive takeaway, meaning nearly half the assets are in fair or better condition. And that's a fairly solid foundation for infrastructure and asset management. In summary, this graph will give you a clear snapshot of where the township stands with its assets, and it's a crucial tool for guiding asset management strategies. So with the assessed condition data that is used in the decision-making for asset management, there are really the three things associated with that: to mitigate risk associated with asset failure. By knowing the condition of the assets, potential problems can be spotted before they become critical. By identifying the most economic intervention, by doing small repairs at the right time, you can save costly repairs or replacements in the future. And as well, to accurately predict future expenditure requirements. With good condition data, you can accurately forecast when assets will need major repairs or replacements. So having defined replacement costs, condition of assets, identifying life cycle activities, a long-term capital forecast was developed. It includes both asset rehabilitation and replacement requirements. The graph here shows a 75-year life cycle, and 75 years is utilized because it ensures that every asset has gone through one full iteration of replacement. As you can see, there's peaks and valleys throughout as each asset. More expensive ones will come up for replacement at certain times based on their life cycle. And as we get to the annual capital requirement and infrastructure deficit here, the township is committing approximately 1.3 million towards capital projects per year from sustainable revenue sources, and that would include the gas, not formerly the gas tax, the CCBF, OSIF tax allocations, the average annual requirements for the assets to continue to provide the current level of service total approximately 2.9 million, resulting in an annual deficit of roughly 1.6 million. Put differently, at the bottom, assets are currently funded at 45% of their long-term capital requirements. The funding gap, and it's not uncommon among municipalities, the township is facing an issue where there's a funding gap. The current funding levels are insufficient to maintain the assets at their desired level of service over the long term. If the funding gap persists, it could lead to deterioration of service levels, infrastructure, service disruptions, and that sort of thing. So within that, there's a target reinvestment rate that's calculated that refers to the annual capital requirements as a percentage of the total replacement cost, while the actual reinvestment rate looks at the annual capital funding available as a percentage of the replacement cost. As you can see here, easy numbers, the target reinvestment rate calculated to be 4.5%, while actual reinvestment rate is 2.1%. By comparing actual versus target, you could determine the extent of your existing funding gap. Target reinvestment rate to maintain assets at the current level of service. Ideally, the township should be investing 4.5% of the total asset replacement value. Obviously, that's unheard of in a municipal government. It's fairy tales. And at any rate, this shows a funding gap of 2.4 percentage points, and the gap indicates that the township is currently under investing in its infrastructure by about 2.4 of the total replacement costs. So based on that deficit, it is recommended that the tax-funded assets see an increase of 2.3% annually over the next 10 years. That's solely for the purpose of phasing in full funding for those asset categories that are covered in the AMP, eliminating that infrastructure deficit. Important to note, however, that these numbers do not factor in one-time grants, non-sustainable sources of revenue, etc. It'll continue to be essential source of revenue for investment in capital infrastructure. Adjustments to taxes should be supplemented with project prioritization, evaluation of desired level of service as well. And finally, we can look at recommendations and next steps. It is recommended to continue to review and refine the asset inventory. Obviously, any decisions that are made are based off of data. up-to-date data, current data, the most every asset that's within and managed by the municipality should be entered within the database. It is recommended that portfolio-wide data governance strategy be implemented to increase that accuracy and confidence in the data. It is also recommended to develop an established cycle for updating replacement costs and condition information within the citywide database. And then finally, it is recommended to review the TCA policy, the Tangible Capital Asset Policy, as part of a regular policy review. So in regards to the next step, the township will have to start preparing for the OREG 588-17-2025 requirements, which includes identifying proposed levels of service and developing a medium to long-term external communication strategy to gauge the public on asset management and obtain feedback to inform development of those proposed levels of service. So that actually brings me to the final slide. Thank you for your time. I will take any questions now if that's.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haas. So any questions of our presenter? Yes, Reward.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. Just in terms of assets excluding buildings, what do you see with other municipalities in terms of condition with ignoring the poor and very poor categories? I know we're at 42% total of good or very good. How does that stack up against other municipalities?
Sorry if I understood the question or kind of sort of heard the question. So just in comparison to other municipalities excluding the buildings, how does the township of Douro-Dummer compare?
Precisely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Actually quite well. Just in consideration of the amount, the infrastructure side of things, it's actually extremely decent. Obviously with the road network, the costing on the road network is quite different compared to say other communities that have a 90-ish% of paved roads. So in that instance, just by itself, it's you're in an extremely favorable condition right now. So with the majority of gravel roads being more of a operation and maintenance costing instead of a capital costing, just on that fact alone, the township you're ahead of the game in comparison.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just one other thing I'd like to point out to folks here too. The township's asset base here, roughly 63 million. 30 of that roughly is buildings, or a little bit better than 30 million of that. And of that 30 plus, 30 million is in very poor condition, which we already know with fire calls and all these other infrastructure projects we're talking about. So that's why my question there was surrounding the other assets that we thought. We already know about the big problems we have. So, I think it's nice to point out that not everything is doom and gloom in the township.
Thank you for your options, Councillor. Any other questions from council?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks a lot for your presentation. When I look at the amount that's required to meet our asset management, it is a telling story of what needs to be put away, I believe, every year to meet that for the future. And I think gone are the days of 1% and 2% increases to stay with what we need to operate and to keep our assets in good shape for the people of the township. And would that be a correct assessment from a 2.3% average?
It would be, and that's correct, and that's a correct statement as well. Obviously, not to use the boogeyman, I'm based out of Alberta. The city of Calgary had a water main break during their Calgary Stampede that really sort of put it in bright lights for all municipal councils and for everyone to look at, and actually put money and funding into the infrastructure that's existing within the municipalities. I believe Quebec City had the exact same issue with the water main break. There are other, obviously, that's to wipe out the deficit within 10 years. That's a lot to ask. I know, obviously, everyone's in the same boat. There are, obviously extending that time frame would reduce that by, extending it 15 years to make it 1.5%, say, or by 20 years. But then at what point, and as a council, to say, when are we just kicking it down the road for the next council, or when? So, like I say, it's just to have a baseline to say, however you decide on how to tackle, then yeah, that's more than applicable. And obviously, to get the residents, the taxpayers' feedback is one of the more important things as well. So,
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And actually, you just touched on something, Mr. Hobbs, that I was going to touch on. But to pick up on Deputy Mayor's point, a 2.3 annual increase is not something that we can do either. Like, we can't continue to kick it down the curb, but we also, it's something that's difficult. And this is a problem. As you stated, Mr. Hobbs, and I don't envy you in your position. I'm sure in the work that you do, you're having these tough conversations with municipalities all over the place. But in your words, a 4.5% target is fairy tales, I believe, were the words that you used. And I think, in conversations and attending annual conference earlier and OMAC, and even talking to some of our county neighbors, really this is coming down to a new funding model. The asset management plan was something that understandably was required by the province for municipalities to undertake. So now we all know how really, really, really broke we are. And it's going to end up, putting money where it is, and we can't do it on the taxpayers, and the province and other levels are going to have to step up and assist with this. But the question, you had mentioned in recommendation number 2, identifying proposed levels of service for 2025, as well as engaging the public on, getting feedback for proposed levels of services and such. Mr. Hobbs, I don't know if this question is specifically for you or perhaps Mr. Creamer. What does this timeline look like as it relates to our 2025 budget cycle? And the OREG 58817 is something like, is that time sensitive that we need to submit by? Do we need to start putting funds away in 2025, or will that take effect starting in 2026?
We'll take a stab at it, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but through you, Madam Mayor, the requirements are to be met to update the plan by July 1st. And so we will need to add the proposed levels of service to this plan by July 1st. I'm working of 2025.
Yeah.
I'm working through currently who's going to undertake that. I've been working with MFOA, and we just got approved for some support under one of their Amp It Up programs, where we get 30 free hours of support. So just determining what exactly they will be able to provide us with those hours, and whether or not additional consultation with PSD, or if it's something we can complete internally. So kind of working through that exercise as we complete this, determining next steps and exactly how those next steps will be completed.
So as a follow-up then, are we anticipating the 2025 budget to include a hybrid blended rate of what is before us for asset management exclusively, or just looking for a few spoilers maybe?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I think, I wasn't sure where to address kind of some of my comments as I have a report on this coming up, but to me, this is the foundation that we're going to use going forward. If we think of a pyramid, I think this is needed for step 1. We also completed a development charge study earlier in the year, which identifies some of the other projects that we want to achieve. And I think the other piece that's already being talked about as next steps is where do we want to go for service levels. this is a plan that would maintain all of our existing assets, but are there additional service levels? Are there changes, maybe a reduction in service levels? And so those are some of the types of conversations that I think are had through fire master plans, through recreation master plans, through different plans such that we will incorporate into the full, then what I would call in the pyramid is done, we would have a long-range financial plan. And one of my next steps is to be incorporating the findings of this study and to be presenting at a minimum a 10-year capital plan as part of the capital budget this year. And that's where we'll really start to see this be a little bit more material and hands-on, and we can see the projects that are making up the numbers. And I think that's where it'll all kind of come together in a one nice package, and we'll be able to start to say and determine some of those proposed service levels going forward.
Understood, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Just note, more or less a comment, also about these service levels. In lots of cases, I don't believe we as council or as staff have much choice when it comes to some of the service levels, because they've already been put out by the province of Ontario that we shall meet these levels of service. So when it comes down to them meeting the levels of service, I think in some cases they want us to hit that target or them levels of service. I think we need to be looking at the province to pony up some money to meet these levels of service, either that or reduce the restrictions that they have on us with, and it doesn't matter what we look at. Fire service, we can look at road service, we can look at any of the stuff that we make decisions on up here as council. For that reason, I think we have a tough decision, and I commend our treasurer for doing this project, but don't be fooled that we do not have to meet certain targets and certain aspects that the province has handcuffed us as far as level of service. So that's my comment.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions from you on the report? So seeing nothing, I believe we just at this point, clerk, need to receive the report, or is that being coupled with your?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, at this point, receive the presentation, and then the kind of adoption and approval of the plan is under my report separately. So let's take the clerk usually the procedural, but my report comes up in a few minutes.
Okay, perfect. So, Councilor Watt?
Motion to receive the presentation with thanks.
Deputy Mayor Nelson, second that. All in favor? That motion carries. Mr. Haas, thank you very much for your work and for your time, and also echo the sentiment that you had mentioned, as well as Mr. Kramer. Thank you to all of our team for working together to get you the information so you could prepare today's presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so on to item number 9. We don't have any public comment period as there were no registrations. So on staff reports, item 10.1, the recording capital project status. Council, are there any items that you have questions on? Seeing nothing, just a motion to receive that then, please. Councilor Johnston, second by Councilor Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Item 10.2, the Douro Community Center ice service floor replacement recreation facilities. Mr. Moon, over to you, sir.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, to members of council. I'm going to start with the recommendation that we have before you, that the recreation facilities 2024-05 report dated October 1st, 2024, regarding the Douro ice surface floor replacement be received, and that council directs staff to apply for the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund for the purpose of replacing the Douro Community Center ice surface floor, and further provide direction on the possibility of in-floor heat as part of the project. To just give you a little overview, the Douro Community Center was built in 1980. We're currently about 44 years old. the industry life or life expectancy of a ice surface floor is between 30 and 40 years. And so we're 4 years past the top end of that life expectancy. You know, the Douro Community Center is the central hub of a lot of our recreation and community functions throughout the year. And over the last 4 years, we've been chasing some leaks in the floors. Some of this has cost us some considerable amounts of money for repairs. We've had to introduce a Rink Seal Pro into the floor to help seal one of the leaks. That application alone was approximately $10,000. And then we've had to jackhammer the floor in a couple other spots to seal other leaks that we were able to find. So in other words, we are chasing a bigger issue in the long term. So we were looking at trying to replace the ice surface floor. The replacement costs for the floor comes with some considerable costs. Just to replace the floor like for like, it's approximately $2,153,000. And then there's an option for underfloor heating as well, which is an extra $250,000. A project of this size takes approximately 5 months to complete. So the ideal time frame of this project would be an April to September. That would be as little disruptions to the actual ice surface seasons, like for the hockey. So having said that, given the direction of council and what our direction is, this is more realistically a 2026 project. Given the announcement of when the funding is, there's other considerations that we need to have to meet those timeframes essentially. So part of the actual project is a design of a floor. That design takes approximately 2 to 3 months to complete. So you would have the funding announcement, you would have the design portion of it, and then you would have to go to tender for the actual construction of this. Those aren't necessarily the ideal timelines if we have a failure by any means. There is ways to try to speed up that process, and whether it's committing to a design phase sooner rather than later, we could start that process. That estimate of that process is approximately anywhere in the ballpark of $100,000 for the design for the floor. Of that, in that breakdown, it was $143,000 for project design and project management. So 70% of that is the actual design of the floor, which creates engineered drawings for essentially what every other company is going to be bidding on for the process. Having said that, part of the options the extra option is underfloor heating. I know I summarized some suggested benefits of that. I guess the biggest benefit of that is if council or the recreation department ever decides to operate the facilities longer, have longer seasons, that option is essentially a must for that. You need at least 4 months in between seasons to allow the frost in the ground to alleviate, in which right now we approximately have a little over 4 months, close to 5 months in between seasons, just to allow for that right now, because we currently don't have underfloor heating. Some other suggestions are that you're essentially in control of your subgrade, of what your $2 million investment of the floor is on. So you're in control of that. So that's where some of the other benefits come into play. Yeah, you're not allowing the frost to penetrate the ground. So you're not having frost heave or movement in the floor. It's minimal strain on your floor. And that's to help the industry standard of 30 to 40 years to help you get to that maximum standard of life expectancy. I do know that a number of facilities in the area do have them. Asphodel Nord being one, Cabin Monaghan being one, Lakefield, Ennismore is looking at putting it in. All the Peterborough rinks do. There are some, such as Autonomy, Monaghan, and Havelock. They don't currently have that, but that's just what they had when they built the floor. It is something that I guess you're trying to protect your investment, essentially. Being in control of what it sits on is a huge deal. And especially if you want to prolong the life or extend the seasons of the hockey operations. Without that, that's not possible. But there is some other suggested benefits in here. I know I've been looking into a lot of this stuff. I know one of the questions is on the energy efficiencies. There are potentials to save energy, but from the information I've gathered, it's not significant enough to offset the costs of these over the years. You're looking at helping the system in the warmer temperatures. You're able to dump some of the heat that the compressors use into the actual underfloor heating. In return, that brings your discharge pressures down, so your compressors aren't working quite as hard, and gives you the ability to pull your ice temperature down at startup a little bit quicker, so you may have a little less run time. So I think that's where they're trying to capture some of the energy efficiencies. Other parts is when you do shut down, you do have that frost under the floor. With the the underfloor heating, you're removing that frost under the surface. So when you do shut down, the frost emits the moisture through the concrete. So it creates the slipperier surface for like the ball hockey leagues and any rental that we actually have on the facility floor. For what we do to counteract that is we run our desiccant dehumidifiers throughout the summer months as it alleviates. You'd still have to run them for the first little bit anyways, just because you have the outside moistures from the building and stuff like that. But there is a potential for savings of not running it later into the season or like through a couple of months of the summer. So that's another area where there could be potential energy savings. Again, they're not huge savings on the energy side of things. So, and then one of the other one is just the reduced maintenance costs. They're just suggesting that your floor is not moving as much, so you don't have the constricting and contracting of the floor. And you do have 3 inches of poly pipe every 3 inches in the floor for the full 85, or I guess it's a little bit outside the ice dimensions. So you're looking at about approximately 90 feet every 3 inches, and then the full length of the floor about 190 feet. So that's a lot of internal workings that you're trying to stop from expanding, contracting as much as they are, and or frost heave movements. So those are the benefits that have been identified to me in regards to the underfloor heating. But I guess if you guys have any questions for me, I can happily try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mood, for your summary of the report. So really what we're looking at doing, you're looking for 2 decisions from council today, whether or not council supports applying for funding under the grant, the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. Full stop. We have to decide whether or not to do that. And whether or not in doing so, we want to explore including the heated floor with that application or not. So, council, questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to, fight that.
It's a great starting place. Thank you. Second, Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion on the motion? I just have a question, not so much discussion. Mr. Green, when you're talking about the timelines of this project, should we be successful in receiving the grant? I noticed online that the once awarded, the funding must be spent within 24 months. So if we, based on your overview of that, we would still be within that timeline then, yes?
See, Madam Mayor, yes, we would be essentially able to meet those timelines essentially, because I believe if it was, if we did go on a contract with them, it would likely be in the new year. So then we would have that summer and then next summer, and it ideally would be wrapped up by September, which we still would have had until the new year, the following year, 2027.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carried. Sorry. Yep, yes. I was just trying to pick them off, yeah, the easy ones. Councilor, what?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and investigate the heating and the floor option, because, and this is just about mine, but with the shifting of the floors and the heating and cooling that we got, that's a lot of weights that we got on those plastic pipes. In my mind, that's probably part of the cause of the leaks that we do get. So if we can eliminate that movement, we can probably eliminate a lot of our leak problems. So I would move that we investigate the heating of the floor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to second that?
Everyone.
We're asking questions.
I'm not.
You're going to second that?
Yes, please.
Any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, I'm just a quick discussion is that I'm all for it. We talked about this already, but the thing is that really, when I look at things, 4 years ago, and that it seemed to be cold weather then. And to me, it would be harder then than it is now. Now, maybe it works in reverse, I don't know. I mean, I'm not against doing the heater underneath, but I'm just thinking that, we've already been to the kind of maximum, and it hasn't had too much problem. I don't know that we're going to extend the years of, the months of ice out there. And I just, I'm wondering, I would think it would be when it was colder, be more of a problem than it is as our weather seems to get warmer.
Mr. Green?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Johnson. Yes, I know that theory is correct in what you're thinking and saying, but you also have to think about, like, if it's colder out there and those facilities aren't as insulated, your plant isn't going to run as much. So that cold is actually staying in the facility. So your refrigeration that's in the floor is potentially running less. So now that we have warmer temperatures and warmer weathers, that plant is running potentially more than it was at that time in a concrete floor, and that's where you get the frost coming down. The actual building temperatures, that's if it's colder outside, it's actually better for us in the sense that we're maintaining a better sheet. Our plants are running less. Our operation, our compressor hours, our runtime is definitely less in January, February of every year. So it's with the warming climates, essentially, that's where you're getting the more frost driving into the grounds, because your refrigeration is running more. And at that level in the floor, that's where you get it to go down further. So.
Any other questions, discussion on the motion? I've got a couple. To the last point, I don't think they're making concrete as well as they used to 40 years ago either, in the grand scheme of things. So I'm curious in terms of, in your report, you said currently we're running about 5 months between seasons, and that without a heated floor, you really can't get a shorter window than 4 months. Is that what I'm understanding correctly? So how much could we potentially extend the season with the heating floor? Like, could we shorten it to 3 months, or is 4 months like even with the heating floor?
Madam Mayor, actually, like, depending on your building capabilities and where you are, with the underfloor heating, that's for facilities that want to run 24 or 12 months a year. Like, you don't know downtime. That gives you that opportunity.
So could we, based on our building envelope, run year-round ice?
At this time, there's some facility upgrades that would need to be considered to do that. But I'd say right now, I would say no. But with future upgrades, potentially, yes, absolutely we could.
Understood, thank you very much. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? So a motion on the floor to investigate the in-floor heating and include it with the funding application. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. On to Mr. Creamer with our asset management plan. Item 10.3.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I've addressed many of my comments so far earlier, and I think the presentation addressed many of my comments, but you know, as I did mention, I believe that this plan is a foundation for us going forward. Any plan like this, your outputs in the plan are only as the outputs are only as good as the inputs, and so I think we've identified some areas where we can, you know, improve our inputs and improve our data. It's going to be a work in progress, and I don't think we're unlike any other municipality in that wanting to improve some areas around our data. But I think what's helpful with this plan and this project is that those areas are identified now for me and our team. So you will see going forward, probably, you know, some of those areas highlighted in budget, and if there's any costs associated with doing that work. But for today, what we're happy to have this plan in front of council and to have it completed, and to be able to say that we're now meeting the requirements of the province and their regulation that stated that we need to have this plan done. So.
Thank you very much, council. Questions? Motions, discussion, council report.
I'll make a motion to receive and approve.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, sorry.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion?
Kind of a motion, but just on what Paul just said, and I just wanna, I know he's already said it, but I just wanna reiterate the fact that he's always including his team in the things too. It's not, you know, what I did or whatever else, it's a team project where the team's gone forward, and the team's done everything, and I really appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind remarks. If I see no other discussion on the motion, I do have a couple of points to make, but Mr. Watt, you have a
No, I was just gonna vote.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to support the motion, of course, but I also wonder if council might want to consider some kind of follow-up, bit of a precursor to our MPP, to let the Ontario government know that we've got some concerns and challenges with our ability to find this. And yes, we've hit the criteria, we've hit the mark to be able to have it done, but now we know we can't unknow. And I think it might be worthwhile for council to consider sending a letter to our MPP and to the minister to express our concerns about the impact on small rural municipalities such as ours. Look at me, there's a motion, yeah. So on this motion, all in favor? That motion carries. Yeah. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I will make the motion on just what you exactly said.
Did you find that one?
I kind of spoke to it a little bit earlier, but exactly, no, I would support that 100%.
Great, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Seconded? I mean, I was on the chair, guys, so.
Everybody wants
Councilor
to say. Madam Mayor, I second that and make I think a small amendment in there too.
Emotional or?
So that, we send this to our MPP minister, and I think we should also send this to other rural municipalities in central, eastern, and western Ontario as well, to look for their support.
Sure. I think it's like brought up a few times, but we should. So that's okay with friendly amendment to the motion, Deputy Mayor?
Absolutely.
You're going to the second, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much.
You should get a call.
That's number one.
I don't remember the second one, so there we go. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you for reminding me. On to item 10.4, financial report from Mr. Freeman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in front of you is report treasurer 2014-19. This is to provide you an update as of September. I mean, the financials were run as of September 23rd, 2024. You know, I think I've provided this report in the past and provided the caveats that you know, we don't have all invoices as of that date, and there's always going to be a lag in some of the information. We're constantly reviewing allocations and reviewing accounts, but this is to provide council information, the financial information as at September 23rd, 2024.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Council, questions, comments, motions? Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Councilor Report.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. On to the procurement update. Mr. Freeman, this is your night. Yes. Over to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in front of you is report treasurer 2024-20. This is to approve and enter into an agreement with Powell Contracting Limited for 2024 roadside safety devices tender. This was completed through a coordinated tender with the County of Peterborough. And so these are the results. It does fall within budget, and just looking for approval to enter into the agreement as per our procurement policy.
Thank you very much. Councilor Walner.
Motion, follow the recommendation.
I will accept that motion in 1 quick second. Mr. Freeman, just a quick question. So Hickey Road project, do we know when that project will be complete? If we're just going to tender?
For you, Madam Mayor, in conversations with the manager of Public Works, my understanding is that this work will be completed this year, but the remaining works on Hickey Road will be carried forward to next year.
Thank you. That motion now.
All right.
Thank you very much. Anyone want to second the motion? Any announcement? Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. On to item 10.6, which is a report that I have on the agenda for community engagement meeting. Just bear with me. Thank you. There we go. So council, a rare report for me, but I think that this one we can get council behind. I'm hoping that we'll receive the report, of course, and that council will support hosting a community engagement meeting this fall in the town hall, and that we request senior management to attend. So there are, as a bit of a background, there's a couple of town hall meetings that are happening this fall, if you want to call November 13th fall, I think it still is. One is a healthcare town hall on November 13th in Douro Community Center. The other is a county tourism roundtable that's happening on October 28th at Douro Community Center. Of course, these are really good opportunities for the local residents to come out and engage on those very topic-specific issues. What I'd like to see is a bit of an open house or meet and greet of sorts where council is available for a couple of hours one evening. There's some possible dates that are already in the report that seem to work with our meeting schedule. And in the town hall where people can come in, engage individually with their council members. So it's not an official council meeting, there will be decisions made, no need administratively to have a clerk in attendance, so to speak. We'll also have managers available, so people, residents are looking to get information on, everything from recycling, building to everything in between, roads, and what have you. They can speak directly with managers as well and get resolution to some concerns or answers to questions that they may have. You know, the intent is to be a free-flowing event where almost kind of like a science fair where people can go from spot to spot and engage with the respective department or elected member. And just have better understanding and ability to communicate with council in a free-flowing format as opposed to coming to the chambers with specific concerns or issues. So that's what I'm proposing, and hopefully council will be interested in wanting to support something like this.
We'll make a motion to try and put the date that we know together, but I support that 100%. So then, but I'd like to try to put a date together with it first, after the one, everybody else supports it.
That's fair. Thank you very much. Councilor Johnston, Councilor Watt.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to throw data, that's good for any date to work.
Perhaps some non-enforcement.
Yeah, it's so funny enough, I didn't actually even check my own calendar against these dates when I was looking at the council meetings. I might not be available some of these dates.
13th and 14th is sound like it's if we could,
13 seconds.
well. It's wonderful.
We could do that.
Christmas Eve is.
You just like that.
There you go. Okay, so November 6th or 7th, is that where we're looking at, folks?
I can't pick one to 7.
6 it is.
6 it is.
It's the earliest possible date too.
6 is fine.
It strangely works for me. So there we go. Maybe I did check it against my own calendar.
You'll remember November 6th. Yeah, I'll put that in the date being November 6th at the time we were saying.
6:30,
I think it was like a 6:30 to 8:30.
6:30.
I'm
You're
good with that.
okay with that as well? Wonderful. Madam Clerk, do you have anything else on the motion, housekeeping wise? Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. I appreciate your support on that. So, yes, we'll do it.
I was going to ask that question.
Sandwiches or something. Okay, unless I missed a page, section 11, committee minutes and other reports. So we have the arena facilities feature ad hoc committee minutes from October 12th, 2023. Because they haven't met.
Madam Mayor, because the community hasn't met so recently, so those minutes are sitting waiting here.
Until their most recent meeting, and it's like, okay, a motion to receive those. Councilor Johnston, Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor, that motion carries. Correspondence, we have an item from the City of Kitchener, 12.1 resolution regarding renovations, safe and adequate housing. Council, what would you like to do with this one? Councilor DeVore,
I'll make a motion to receive.
thank you. Councilor Watt? Everyone second that? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. On to bylaws. Madam Clerk, do I need you to walk me through some of these, or can you do it? If you don't mind, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's 3 bylaws on the agenda this evening. The first bylaw is bylaw number 2024-57. This is a bylaw to assume parcels into the road system. So these are the 10-foot strips and severance. And the roll file is listed there, and the severance file is also listed. The next bylaw before you is bylaw 2024-58. At the last meeting of council requested that staff amend the schedule for the committee of the whole meetings, moving them from Tuesdays to Wednesdays. Because the procedural bylaw is a bylaw, we need a bylaw to amend that and to make that change. So that's that one. And then the final bylaw is bylaw 2024-59. This is a bylaw to appoint our chief administrative officer. Also at the last meeting, there was an announcement that the hiring, the recruitment process has been completed, and staff were to bring forward a bylaw for this, so that's here. And also to appoint a deputy chief administrative officer, and then to repeal the previous appointed bylaws. Those are all 3.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. One motion for all, or?
If we could do them individually.
All right, let's start with 13.1. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councilor Johnston, any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. 13.2. Council report, seconded by discussion. All in favor? And that motion carries. 13.3. Councilor Watt, Councilor Johnston, any discussion? All in favor? That carries. Did you have that, Madam Clerk? Thank you. Are there any reports from, or there are no reports from notices of motion previous? Are there any notices of motion? Seeing nothing, any announcements? Councilor Watt?
Yes, and I did send it to our counselors because I was off by dates, didn't think we had a meeting until after, but this Saturday, and it's open to everyone, 50th anniversary celebration in our Lakeville IDA pharmacy, which I know a lot of people in this township use the IDA in Lakeville for their needs and stuff like that. And it's this Saturday, October 5th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I do believe there'll be some goodies and stuff like that that they will provide. So we're looking for a nice turnout and just to meet and greet everyone. So.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Any other announcements from council? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, I see the new, calendar that the fire department is, trying to do as a fundraiser. We're gonna bring one tonight, I forgot, and I got a couple. But anyways, I just want to let people know that, they are available, strictly all of our fire department in the calendar. And they're $20 each, and again, it's a fundraiser for fire department for the work they do. I hope that a lot of people will support this. Thank you.
Absolutely, I've already picked up my copy. They are, it's for the Firefighters Association, and they're available at Fourth and Street Needs, the Township office, the general store in Warsaw, and I think there's 2 other locations on here that Brady's, in Warsaw, or Douro for me, and a couple of other spots as well. Thank you for mentioning that. Deputy Nelson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just wanted to mention, our successful, I believe, tree, program again this year. And I just wanted to say thanks to staff and whoever volunteered, and come out and volunteered, and thanks for, volunteering their time for a tree program. And I believe I heard it was very successful. Everybody was happy. I was happy with my trees. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Nelson. You took the words right out of my mouth. There were 772 trees. I was there to help out for a little bit as well, but we had a new Martina and Ashley primarily from the office who were there. So thank you to Martina and your colleagues at the office. We also had a volunteer from Fourth Land Trust who came and helped as well, which was really appreciated. I will make the announcement that this Saturday is also Culture Days in Douro. That's being organized by the Friends of the Library. They are organizing a bus tour around the township to look at natural heritage features with a guided interpreter. That's from 10 until 12, and then $10 a person, I believe, donation to the Douro Library. And then from 12 o'clock onwards or 12:30 onwards, I believe there's crafts and things for kids and families celebrating as well. So last but not least, any other announcements? Councilor Watt? I was gonna say, it looked like.
But completed already, but the 2-day rodeo, they were really when it went off. Fantastic, and good turnout of people, good turnout of contestants. Yeah, I was, except a little wet Tuesday, but Wednesday was like fantastic. We had 45 vehicles went through on the Wednesday. And yeah, it was a great 2 days, and I really enjoyed it. And I want to say thanks to everybody that helped in making that a big deal in our township.
Just something else to add, and thanks for all the volunteers that actually come out and helped out. Without the volunteers, our association, and I'm a lifelong member of that association, would not exist actually if we didn't have them volunteers coming in. So thanks for everybody, and thanks for the council members that come out, and that was very nice to recognize all the drivers from all over the province. Like, that is the most drivers we've ever had in a rodeo. The last rodeo, I believe that we held at the Douro Arena was in 2008, so it's quite a few years in between there, but anyways, thanks for the volunteers and everybody that helped out and our association was great.
Thank you. They even let me inside of a contract.
Sorry.
They even let me inside of a contract. Fun stuff. Okay, we don't, oh, Councilor Johnston.
To the chair, one more thing I want to mention is that when I drive around, I see that other townships to advertise our Santa Claus parade. I think we always go to the last Saturday of the month. And so I would like to get it on some of the signs around. Other municipalities have got theirs up now. So I would like to get ours advertised as soon as we can. I know we'll be having a meeting on it soon, but I think that advertisement now doesn't hurt to get it.
So is that November 30th, Councilor?
November 30th. 5 o'clock for you against over. I would think so, but that's where you have it, and continue on.
Thank you for calling that out.
Sooner we get it showing, then we get people to participate in it and think about it.
Yeah.
Great.
Great, thank you very much. One final announcement, because, hey, why not? Just a note of thanks to the Bradfield family who hosted the Douro County plowing match last weekend. A great number of people attended that. There were at least 10 county councilors or elected folks there, including our MP, and beautiful property, well-attended event, beautiful weather for it too, which I think our MP arranged that day. I don't know. But it was great to be able to host that in Douro-Dummer Township as well, and welcome the broader farming community to Bradfield. Are we still doing lessons? There's a lot going on in this tiny township. Good work.
Through the chair, should I not speak on? But anyways, we are having Remembrance Day on the Monday, the day it falls on. So again, we'll be contacting the schools and everybody to participate in this. And that's Remembrance Day.
Thank you very much, Councilor. We're gonna wrap it up on that.
Yep, we're good.
This radio shows it. We have now a closed session, just confirming bylaws. Anyone else on the councilor report, all in favor, that motion carries. Going back to announcements. So a couple of dates to write down. We do have committee, the whole meeting happening October 8th. That starts in November, October 8th at 10 o'clock. And our regular council meeting next is on October 15th, right after Thanksgiving. So on that, have a good Thanksgiving. Motion to adjourn. Every councilor watching my council report. Any discussion, of course not. All in favor, motion carries.